And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I'm your host, Coach Donnie Hess, here, back with another SANFL snapshot. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we've done Victoria, we've done WAFL. Now we have to do the SANFL. Yes, SANFL footy is back. I know we were supposed to be last week, but some scheduling situations, some illness situations kind of took that away. But we thought, let's hop on, let's talk sample. Joining me, unfortunately, Darce has a situation. Darce, we are thinking about you, sir. Again, stay awesome. Keep us updated on how things are going. I'm not going to share any information on that. That is personal. We'll not do that. But Darce, we are thinking of you, sir. We miss you. Cannot wait to have you back as soon as you can. But you know it, the voice of the sample, one of my favorite guys, and somebody who I know is going his chest is going to be just the littlest bit higher after a wonderful weekend against the Vicks. We will let him talk about that here in a little bit. We have Phil Aspinall. Phil, it is great to see you, sir.
Yeah, g'day, Donny, and echo those sentiments. Shout out to Das. I was lucky enough to catch up with him in person on Saturday, and yeah, I'm thinking of you in this times, mate. And but looking forward to chatting all things SANFL tonight, and yeah, of course, SANFL W as well because the W girls got the win over the Vicks, which seems a long time ago now. We are focused in on WA next weekend, but plenty of SA footy to talk about tonight.
Well, just pre-mic, we'll let you know as we were sitting here talking a little bit of selection again. If anybody that's listening to it, my lips are sealed. I know Paul may reach out. No, I'm just kidding. I know that's not going to happen. I'm not that important. But let's go to it. Since he was the head of selectors, let's let him brag a little bit as his girls got a win, as the Sandful girls got a win over the Vicks. Phil, how proud are you? First game as head of selectors, and your girls get it done.
Oh, look, I'm more proud of the fact that we bounced back from the year before. I wasn't involved in the program the previous year, but when you lose to the Vicks, the arch rivals, it leaves a sour taste in the mouth. And I was lucky enough for Wharf Radio to commentate the game that Friday night at Alberton, where the VFL were too quick. Put simply, they had superior leg speed. They had a game style where they played the ball out the back, and they got a lot of goals from a lady by the name of Nike Jock, who I think is a premiership player at
Yep.
Werribee Kangaroos in the VFLW. We picked the side based on what we knew to be the small grounds, the surroundings, the weather conditions, and we copped a bit of a blow in that early in the second term, losing Caitlin Rosenzweig, who a shout out to Katie because she's such a wonderful person and a wonderful player, and she unfortunately did her ACL, and so we're down on rotations. The conditions were a bit tricky, and it was an arm wrestle. It wasn't a pretty game of footy, but we got over the line in the end, 3-4-22 to the Vicks to 8-20. So it was an arm wrestle, as I say, 12 scoring shots to the VFL, 7 to us, and our South Australian girls made the most of their opportunities. The game didn't feature any huge highlights, but there was endeavour, there was intensity, and Narelle and the coaching staff and I were really pleased with the result. Obviously, making a tone for last year's disappointing performance and getting over the line by the 2 points.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Unfortunately, the men, we can't say the same. Unfortunately, they fell by 5 points, 103-98. But again, still cracking to see this old rivalry between Sandful and the Vicks. It's always so much fun. But you know what? We are here to talk Sandful footy. So let's jump right into it, sir. We were going to record last week and we had two women's games, but like I said, some situations happen, so we're going to add one more round to it. So we have 3 rounds of the women and five
Mhm.
rounds of the men to talk about. Just real quickly, your thoughts on the footy that we have seen, because some cracking football that we have seen both in the men's and the women's competition.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that's come out of it, Donny, is a bit of some surprises, some surprise packets. And the
Yep.
first team that comes to mind, I think of, is the West Adelaide Footy Club. Under a resurgence with Nathan Bassett, the new man in charge. And we know Nathan's history, of course, as a player at the Crows AFL level, his AFL assistant coaching abilities with Essendon, with Melbourne, with Port Adelaide, of course. But back in charge of a SANFL team on his own. And I think he's just put a renewed enthusiasm, some confidence to West Adelaide. And I knew that they were an improved side. I called them in round two with the draw against Central and just saw a change of game style, a change of intensity, some selective recruiting, some organic growth has probably been the biggest key. And then for the Double Blues, who we know are the reigning premiers, I've seen them 3 out of the last 4 weeks and they look a shadow of their former team. They've got a lot of injuries, but Westies broke a pretty long hoodoo. I think it was 20 games, getting an upset over Sturt last weekend. So, look, the men have surprised a few with some of the results, the way they've gone. and it's been a pretty even competition in the SANFL W. So it's been some exciting footy over the last 5 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Let's in fact, speaking of that, let's jump right into the women because I got to say this round one had a sh couple of shockers, a couple of results that I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. Let's start off. I want to give a huge shout out. Return of the legend that is Shelby Smith and the Central Districts Bulldogs welcome her wonderfully as they get a win over North Adelaide 56-29. West Adelaide stun the Glenelg Tigers 58-54. We have our first draw of the year as Sturt and Woodville West Torrens play to a 34-34 draw. We'll have to discuss that on how that result ended. And South Adelaide start off the season as they usually do in great fashion with a 40-14 win over the Norwood Football Club. But let's talk about the draw first, and then we'll come back to the West Adelaide game. But both of these games had the same kind of feel. One team starts off incredibly well, and the other team comes roaring back. But two differences. West Adelaide find a way to win it, but in the Woodville West Torrens ones, it takes a shot after the siren to level the scores. I will ask this, Phil. Is this a little bit of controversy? Because I know on the even the call people were a little bit bewildered on this game. The siren goes, and then it was like, oh yeah, there's actually a shot after the siren by Claudia O'Neill, knowing a goal gives us a draw.
Yeah, look, it was a fascinating game. I was there to watch. There was a doubleheader, the Central North game earlier, which we'll touch on shortly. But this game, it was a real shock. Sturt came out of the blocks early, 4 goals, 3-0, and then ended up being the same scores at half time. So it was a blustery day. Woodville has this innate ability to be really tricky down the southern end of the ground. There's some trees and some coverage, but it gets quite blowy and blustery. And yeah, look, it was an intriguing game of football. Narelle's team, her coach's box was about 20 metres to my left, and I casually looked over on a few occasions and saw some thumping of the desk and some frustrated looks on the furrowed brow of Narelle Smith. And
Mhm.
credit to Sturt though, under obviously a new changing coach with Michael O'Connor leaving and Ange Foley coming on board. She has a great footballing playing resume. And I think a new game style that she's got the team playing had a few surprised, and then we knew that the Eagles are too good of a side to lay down the way they did. And yeah, you're right, that controversial finish saw Claudia O'Neill obviously line up for that shot on goal, and I suppose the question was on the day as well. It's after the siren. She has to be in a straight line from where she was standing on the mark, and that was up against the boundary line. If she
Mhm.
steps into the field of play, that's play on, and it becomes a dead ball essentially. So
Yep.
I think some questions from the Sturt officials as to whether she did step inside to have that check side shot on goal,
Mhm.
which missed narrowly in the end. Obviously, a point, the result, the draw,
Yep.
and then ironically, Sturt draw 2 weeks later again, which we'll touch on later. But look, an intriguing start to the season. It was great to see some real quality football across the two games that particular day. And yeah, the reigning grand finalist Narelle Smith, by her own words, they got out of jail.
Yep, definitely. They got a point. They got points out of that. They probably shouldn't have the way it was.
Mm,
Sturt absolutely jumped them. I sat there and watched the game and it was just like, what's going on? Like I just
mm.
was not. It just didn't register to me. I thought this Woodville West Torrens team they should come with a chip on their shoulder after the way the season ended the year before. And
Yep.
it was like they came out and they forgot how to play football for the
Mm,
first quarter. And Sturt absolutely made them pay. And then the second quarter, they kind of woke up, but still couldn't kind of get it going. And then the third quarter, they went, okay, this is Eagles footy. And
yeah.
they made, but they could never get over the hump. So again,
Mm.
now as we'll see in round two, they figured it out and figured it out quickly. But I
Mm.
just real quickly, the West Adelaide Glenelg game was the same situation, except for this time the result flipped. It was West Adelaide roaring back after being down big early and getting a 4-point win.
Yeah, that'll be the one that the Tigers will rue and let them, a victory slip from the jaws of defeat. So I think full credit to West Adelaide. Shane Pill, the first year coach of the SANFL W side, had his girls out there for the first time, and Chelsea Newitt was impressive with 3 goals. But a young girl by the name of Sarah Deed, she was impressive again on the weekend. She racks up possessions and kicked a couple of important goals. So I think Westies might just fly under the radar a little bit. There'll be an improved side this year, and Talia Radan in her second year. A bit of work to do to get the girls off the bottom of the ladder from year prior.
Definitely for sure. So let's move now. We'll move on to round two again. Some cracking games. I am loving the SANFL W footy this year. We start bounce back with the draw and get a win over Glenelg 58-42. Norwood survive a scare from the North Adelaide Roosters and get a 2-point win 47-45. South Adelaide get a win over the Central Districts Bulldogs 36-12. And as I said, Woodville West Torrens woke up and said, oh, we're supposed to be a good football team as they smash the Bloods 89-6. Wow.
That
Let's
was a
jump.
huge result, wasn't it?
Oh, gee, I remember seeing this and was just going, you've got to be kidding me.
Mm,
It was like, I will say this. I did not message Norel after the draw because it was like, I knew she was probably not happy because that first, like I said, the first half was not good. But
no.
I almost did, but I didn't. I almost messaged her and goes, really? I almost did because I
Yeah.
just could not believe that score. 89 points, incredible. And the crazy part is West Adelaide didn't even kick a goal. All six were points, not
Yeah.
even a goal kicked. But
Yep.
well, let's go. Let's go. Probably cracking game of the round's got to be West Adelaide, North Adelaide versus Norwood. The Red Lakes get a win for Ben Hunt in his return as coach for North Adelaide here, just surviving a scare by the Roosters.
Yeah, look, and North Adelaide have shown in the last couple of weeks, and again, we'll touch on shortly with their big surprise win over South last week, that they'll be an improving side under Kelly Baltrop. She's one of the assistants in the state program and got to know Kelly quite well. Found out that we actually live literally around the corner from each other as well. So we see each other at the local shops and cafe. And I think North Adelaide will be an improving side this year under Kelly. But Norwood, of course, are a good side. They've got a good coach, a reigning premiership coach, and they did enough to hold off. And I didn't see much of this one because I was calling the Sturt Glenelg game, which was a fascinating game of footy. The two key forwards down in attack, Georgia King for Sturt and Kiana Lee for Glenelg, both kicked 4 goals apiece in a real high quality game. And you've touched on it a few times, Donny, and I think one of the keys we're all noticing, those that have been around the system for a while, because the SANFL W is in its 10th season, is that every year we progress, it goes up another notch. The quality of the games is a higher standard. The girls are getting better, quicker, faster footy. And it's been a fascinating start to the season.
Yes, definitely for sure. Just in the little time that I have in the 3 years that I've been keeping track and paying attention to, the quality of game is even better.
Mm,
Just
mm,
not just the score. Like that's the other thing. Like I've seen some games that are lower scoring that just there's quality tackling, there's quality balls movement, there's quality
yep.
structure amongst the teams. It is absolutely incredible what these coaches are doing, and it just shows the growth in women's football and what South Australia is doing is absolutely fantastic. I know
Yep.
WA is doing the same thing. Like the quality of competition that the state leagues are providing us are
Mm,
giving us some absolutely top tier quality girls. And the AFLW, you can tell, is benefiting from this great coaching in these state leagues. Let's move to round three, the last round that has competed. And again, we see some stunners. Woodville West Torrens starts off the round with a nice win over Central Districts Bulldogs 55-40. The stunner, as we said, North Adelaide shocked the competition with a 6-point win, 30-24 over South Adelaide. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I said that North Adelaide beat South Adelaide in the women's competition. Then to hold my beer moments, West Adelaide and Sturt go, let's make it more interesting. A 15-15 draw. And then Norwood says, we're tired of this and gets a 40-point win over Glenelg, 55-15. Again, another round where we've got two great games to discuss. Let's start off with the draw. Low scoring, but a great game between West Adelaide and Sturt, and they share the points.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough to call this game. First of all, though, a shout out to the SANFL and major sponsor SA Power Networks. They trialed something that hasn't been done before. All 4 games played on the same day at the same venue. So Cooper's Stadium at Norwood hosted 4 games. Now, for someone like me, a foot enough, and now involved in the state program, what better way for me to be able to see all girls on show and be
Mhm.
there for the whole day? Got there at 8:30 in the morning, didn't get home until 7 o'clock at night, so it is a long day. But an 11-hour super festive SANFL W footy was fantastic. And yeah, look, that Sturt West Adelaide game, both sides had their moments. Narelle Smith and I commentated this one, and we just felt like Sturt always had West Adelaide at arm's length to an extent, not on the scoreboard, but just in game play. But full credit to Westies. They hung tough. They had their chances. They just had a couple of opportunities in the second half where they probably their ball movement going inside 50 perhaps just lacked a little bit of class. And Sturt again, we felt like at any given stage they could break the game open, but conditions were really trying, Donny. It was a disappointing day weather-wise. It rained from 8:30 when I got there, and it didn't stop raining until 7 o'clock at night when I left. So made conditions tricky and greasy. And as I said at the intro when we're talking about the Sturt Eagles game, Sturt now within their first 3 weeks, 2 draws. So Ange Foley's had an interesting start to her coaching career, but this was a fascinating game and a real arm wrestle.
Yeah, definitely, definitely for sure. And then, yeah, and then we got to talk about the stunner. I mean, North Adelaide knocking off South Adelaide again. The Panthers, we're just used to them being this great team. So this is a shocker. It shouldn't shock us because I think the competition is getting more even. I think it's not
Mm.
as easy to just be a dominant team. But let's just be honest, this stunned us.
Yeah, it did. And I looked on paper and I thought South Adelaide were pretty strong. They had a couple of girls out. The two Cockatoo Motlap girls had some personal things they were dealing with up in the top end. But other than that, I thought they were pretty good on paper. And you would think they'd go in raging favourites, but they did not look their normal South Adelaide selves from the get-go. Full credit to Kelly Baltrop and the North Adelaide Roosters. They kicked the first 2 goals within the first 5 minutes and never really were headed. Like they kicked in the second half. They only kicked the 1 goal, and South gave a bit of a fight. Conditions certainly made it a little bit trickier, but want and endeavour are two massive things in any brand of footy, whether it's under 11s, whether it's SANFL W, AFL. And North Adelaide had this in spades over South. The Panthers looked flat. They didn't look their usual selves. And full credit to the Roosters because they got the job done and got it done reasonably comfortable despite the 1 goal result.
Yeah, definitely, definitely for sure. Like I said, this is going to be a cracking season. Just the first 3 rounds have me absolutely rubbing my hands together, excited to see what these girls are going to give us because I think this could be a ripping competition. As we said, things are much more even. I don't think it's
Mm,
as clear cut as we all kind of thought at the start of the year, which I like because it means
mm.
there's intrigue. I love parity in competition. So let's jump
Yep.
over from the women to the men. We've got 5 rounds of football, so we'll go a little bit quicker we'll go a little bit quicker with this. We'll go back to round one. We start off the season with a win over Norwood, 71-66. The Woodville West Torrens get a smashing over South Adelaide, 101-49. West Adelaide nip the Crows, 79-72. North Adelaide get a win over Central Districts, 78-73. And the Glenelg Tigers smash Port Adelaide, 101-54. A couple of crackers. I mean, West Adelaide getting a win over Adelaide, a little bit of a stunner again. This is an Adelaide Crow side again. With all of that AFL talent, sometimes I think they were the team we were kind of expecting to be towards the top of the table in the SANFL competition.
Yeah, without a doubt, Donny, that was the surprise result of round one, albeit Westies probably should have won by more. 11 goals, 13
Yep.
to 11 goals, 6. So they had the 24 scoring shots to 17. And by all reports, they were the best team on the day and got the fitting result. We'll touch on it as we progress. And I don't like saying this with Centrals at the bottom of the ladder, but they had winning opportunities throughout all of the contest, particularly in the second half. And full credit to Josh Franco in charge with his second coming as coach of the Roosters, got the job done. The Panthers, a disappointing start for them. They'll come better as the season progresses, which we'll touch on. And no surprise to see Glenelg get the job done. I think Port are going to struggle out of the two AFL reserve side. They've got the less depth, in my opinion. And the Tigers under Matty Clark, of course, reigning AFLW star coach with the Crows, has got his team off to a good start in the first time in charge of a men's side.
Wonderful, wonderful. We'll move to round two where the stunning still happens as the Woodville West Torrens Eagles get a win over Adelaide 84-76. The Glenelg Tigers get a win over Norwood 51-43. The Central Districts Bulldogs and West Adelaide Bloods come fight and go to a 71-71 draw. Why are so many draws happening in this competition? And we'll go to McGain Stadium as the Panthers get a win over Port Adelaide 70-54 and start to end the round with an impressive win over North Adelaide 109-50. I mean, I got to say this as a as a Sandful caller, how many have you seen this many draws this early in the season in both competitions?
Yeah, it's been a unique start, and SANFL stats guru Phil Hurd, and I managed to get him to do some research with the women's one in particular because, as I touched on, two for the first 3 weeks for Sturt, and surprisingly, back when we would have had lesser teams in the competition, it wasn't all that uncommon. I think there was actually about three clubs that have had two draws in a season or more. One I think had three, so doesn't surprise me more with the women. With the men, a little bit bit more unique, and I was lucky enough to call the Westies Central's draw with a great up and coming talented commentator named Patrick Goldsmith. And yeah, Paddy had Tom Scully on the call with the shot on goal. With the dying stages, and basically it was kicked from up against the boundary line. He was 6 rows deep in the bleachers, and Scully, got that goal that managed to see Westies salvage a draw. So the other thing that came away from it is Centrals were in a winning position late in the game, and weren't able to get away with the win. So some work to do early days for Paul Thomas and the Bulldogs.
Definitely for sure. Let's move on. Round three, we see Norwood start off the round with an impressive 22-point win over South Adelaide, 74-52. The Glenelg Tigers get a scare from West Adelaide, but still get the win, 85-82. Adelaide bounce back after two losses to get a win over Central Districts, 83-74. North Adelaide get a win over Port Adelaide, 91-74. And the Woodville West Torrens Eagles shock Sturt by a 2-point margin with a 97-95 cracking match to end the round. That's the one we got to talk about again, as you said. Sturt not looking as solid as I think we thought, and Woodville West Torrens starting off the season very strong.
Yeah, look, I'm a fan of Sauce Jacobs and the Eagles, and I honestly think that they had a situation last year where they ran over a black cat and tripped over a ladder and fell through a pane of glass because they had immense bad luck last year for Sauce, and all it took was for that fortune to be turned around and have a healthy list to start the year, and they currently are the undefeated team in the competition. So Sturt didn't surprise me that they weren't as strong as they finished the year because they had 13 premiership players from the year prior. So obviously seven out, some forced and some unforced. And I think from memory, we counted about 6 or 7 guaranteed starting players out injured, including captain Tom Lewis, who was a late withdrawal from the Double Blues in that game. So Tim Saul and I commentated this one on SANFL now. It was a cracking contest. And for the dying 4 minutes, I reckon it was, the ball was deep inside Sturt's 50, stoppage after stoppage. Full credit to the Eagles, and Sauce got the one of the more memorable wins for Woodville West Torrens in recent years.
It's absolutely fantastic. Great to see, like I said, as you said, it seemed like every single bad thing that could happen to the Eagles last year happened. So it
Hmm.
was great. It's great to see him be at his best and have his best team. And you can see that he really knows the game of football. I'm excited for Sauce. Like I said, I had the pleasure of sitting down and talking with him, and super great footy mind. Can't not wait to see what he can do the rest of the season. So a jump to round four where Norwood get a win over Port Adelaide, 68-61. Woodville West Torrens, as we said, starting off the season strong, getting a win over West Adelaide, 110-69. Adelaide get their second win in a row as they knock off North Adelaide 73-60. Glenelg stun Sturt 82-65, and South Adelaide get a huge win over the Central Districts Bulldogs 119-85. I mean, I think the thing that everybody wants to talk about is this starts Sturt's run of kind of not great football. And as you said, haven't had the greatest of luck, had some injuries, some people not
Mm.
playing. But I want to go to this, like maybe as a connection too, is that for some weird reason, Darce was at the game between Norwood and Port Adelaide and decided to share a picture of him watching the game. So this is a little behind the mic, as I think we all had a little bit of fun. Is like, what are you doing there, sir?
Oh, he's a passionate SANFL man. Obviously, his connections to the Eagles. But yeah, look, that round kicked off with an entertaining game. Full credit to I suppose, a youthful Port Adelaide side. I think from memory, they only had 13 AFL listed players on the night. So that meant there was a lot of top up players. And wind back the clock for Doggies fans of old, a young boy named Lachlan Arnold, whose dad Damien won 3 premierships at Central back in the early 2000s. And it makes me feel old, but I can remember Lachlan as a baby sitting inside one of those premiership cups. He's now 6'9" and was starting ruck for Port Adelaide in this game and featured amongst their best players in his league debut. He tried out at Central, couldn't make it, tried out at North Adelaide, and he took his his opposition ruck to arms and played really well. And Port Adelaide under Jacob Surgeon are competitive. They've got a little bit of work to do in terms of key position players and things, but Norwood good sides win ugly, and Jay Cheaty's got a good side. We talked about Sauce Jacobs. He got the job done against, I'd say, a disappointing West Adelaide based on how well they'd started. But then the biggest surprise, I think, was the game on Anzac Day, and of course, 25th of April in Australia and New Zealand is an important day on the calendar, and all SANFL hosted clubs did that really well. But back-to-back home defeats for the Double Blues and concerns for Marty Matner. Glenelg were fantastic. Tim Saw and I lucky enough to call this one again, and yeah, the Sturt sitting outside the five, and a bit of a worry for them. They'll get some good players coming back over the next few weeks, but all in all, a an interesting round and a bit of Groundhog Day for Central's fans again, being in a position at three-quarter time to go either way. Full credit to South, but the Dogs winless at the bottom of the ladder after 5 rounds, and fans scratching their heads.
Just the littlest bit. And just one of my favorite things every year in the footy calendar is Anzac Day. I always I have a
Mm.
special logo for Anzac Day that producer Ross put out that I absolutely love. I always start off the episode covering the AFL saying, lest we forget.
Hmm.
And I know I'm an American, but again, I absolutely love the pageantry and everything that they do for that. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So, no,
Yep.
I love Anzac Round. Still one of my favorites every year, no matter what competition. They always do it top notch, which I think is absolutely magnificent for those Anzac to celebrate what they have done for both for Australia and for New Zealand. Let's jump to it. Last round that has played since the last time we have chatted, and that is round five. Port Adelaide win the Showdown Light 118-98, an impressive win by the Power on that one. South Adelaide get a win over Glenelg 76-54. Norwood smash the Doggies 71-22. West Adelaide get another stunner as the three-game losing streak continues as West Adelaide get a 4-point win over Sturt 65-61. And Woodville West Torrens with a strong win at Revo Fitness Stadium getting a 97-28 win over the Roosters. Sturts fall, West Adelaide make 'em pay.
Yeah, I'm glad you finished off on that comment because I wanted to touch on that game first because Donny, wind back the clock maybe 2, potentially 3 years ago, and Sturt absolutely embarrassed West Adelaide at Richmond Oval. I don't have the scores in front of me, but I think from memory, Westies didn't kick a goal. It was their lowest score in club history, and they were embarrassed by over 100 points. I think it was close to a 20-goal loss to the Bloods. And you wind back the clock, 2 or 3 years ago, and think, well, West are winning wooden spoon after wooden spoon. The scenes by all reports at Richmond after this victory against the Double Blues, it was like they'd won the premiership. They don't have a huge fan base. It was a Sunday afternoon game. Sturt fans would have travelled well, but yeah, fantastic win. One of the biggest upsets in SANFL history in I think the last probably 5 or 10 years. It's a big call to make, but full credit to West Adelaide and the resurgence that they've had. And Sturt, yeah, again we touch on it, but danger signs for the Double Blues.
Definitely, definitely for sure. I know a long season, still plenty of football, but it's hard when you put yourself in a hole to try to dig back out of. I think
Mm.
they've got the quality to do it, but again,
Yeah.
difficult to do when you put yourself two and three game holes because you're always going to face tougher competition no matter what. So it's going to be interesting to watch this Sturt team a lot for sure. So let's jump to burning questions again. Both Phil and I are on a little bit of a time crunch, so we will only be doing one question per competition. So we'll start off with the women, 3 rounds in. Any stories that have got you interested and really intrigued you so far in the 3 games we have seen in the women's comp?
Well, I'm going to say 4 games because we had a pretty good state game against the VFL,
This is
and
true, yes.
look, that was fascinating to be involved in, and look, I'll cherish the memories I've taken so far. We head off to Perth next weekend. I don't think there's been any fascinating stories of interest that straight away come to mind. We touched on it just when we are talking about the women's game. I think the continued evenness and the continued improvement in the competition, I think, has been the highlight. When we were talking about that Eagles game where they kicked 13 goals, you cast your mind back 4 or 5 years ago, and you'd be thinking you'd be lucky to see 13 goals combined across the whole game. So to have a player kick 6 goals in a game, Claudia O'Neill, really does show what we've seen in terms of progression in the first 3 weeks of the year. And it's only going to get better, Donny. I think the standard will continue to rise.
Definitely, definitely for sure. So I'm 100% with you. I'm loving it. I noticed that in a few games, it's just the fact that you've seen these roaring comebacks.
Mm.
You've seen several teams take huge leads to start off the game, and the other team finally goes, "Oh, time to play football now," and come roaring back into it. It's a little concerned. I bet the coaches' boxes, like as you said, Norell's coaches' box in round one was probably, like I said, I would not want to have. I would have been interested to be a fly on the wall with the language that was probably being said in there. Not that I'm presuming anything on Narel's behalf, but it's got to be frustrating for the coaches because you would think they're ready to go. They shouldn't have slow starts, and but again, footy is footy. It's a weird game sometimes. Sometimes it happens. You just don't
Yeah.
know. You can't explain it, but it happens. So
hmm hmm
very interested to see, do the coaches kind of rein that in? Do we start seeing more even games? I don't want to see smashings. Like again, as impressive as that 89-point performance by Woodville West Torrance is, I don't like them for the competition because
Yeah.
it shows that separation. It shows the lack of parity. So as much as I know the coaches probably won't want that, they want a dominant win. They want to be able to puff their chests up. I like the closeness of the way this competition is, that it is
Mm.
doesn't seem like there's two or three teams that are at the bottom that just they have no hope and they just keep getting smashed each and every week. So I'm loving it. Like I said, be interested to see how that goes the rest of the year. So it'll be fascinating. And then
And I
over to
think
the go ahead.
So I think the other thing we talk about the standard being lifted. I just had a pop up come up now with to remind myself to talk about those three girls that got drafted into the AFLW.
Yep.
That
Yeah.
typifies the standard that the football's really going to. Michaela Anthony, who was best on ground for us against the VFLW, she finds herself on a Hawthorn list. Then you look at someone like Lauren Clifton, who's been around for nearly 100 SANFL games. She gets her opportunity at a team like Melbourne, who probably need that experienced, level-headed player to come in. And
Yep.
then I've been a big fan of Lily Smart. If she was a bit older, she would have been in my state team last time against the VFLW. She was eligible, obviously, for the under 18s, but now she's on an AFL list with West Coast picking her at number 11. So that's really exciting for the future as well, and gives those girls that are coming through a real clear pathway to know that they can play good SANFL footy at any age, any
Yep.
level, and maybe get it to the next level at AFLW.
Yeah, and as much as somebody was like, well, it's taking players out of the competition. Yes, but the thing
Mm.
is it's providing now a new spot for a 16, a 17-year-old girl that maybe
Yep.
wasn't going to get that spot because she didn't have enough experience. Now the
Mm.
whole
Mm.
again, there's the half empty, half full argument with a lot of these players. It's like, well, it's
Yeah.
bad for the competition because you lose a star. Yes, but it's great for the competition because now a younger player who needs that experience of playing now will get that opportunity. I know it's weird to think of it that way,
Mm.
but that's how I think of it is this just gives a 16 to 17-year-old girl who's playing in the under 18 competitions. Now she might get that opportunity to play senior football. And
Well, it's the
maybe
perfect time now, Donny, because full
exactly.
credit to the Norwood Footy Club. They won the 18s women's grand final last weekend. That
Yep.
season's over. So there's going to be 17 and 18-year-old girls who are champing at the bit to play footy.
Yep.
They're now going to get those opportunities for the remainder of the SANFL season and their state under 18s
Exactly.
programs.
Yep. Yep. And you never know. And one time it may just click with one. And the
Mm.
best part is then that may be the thing that gets them over the hump to eventually get drafted in next
Yep.
year's draft if they're a 16 or 17-year-old. So eh,
Yep. Yep.
I know it's weird to think of it that way, but I'm trying to think of it in the positive manner is that again, these girls need these opportunities. These girls' opportunities are there. It's now their time to capitalize on it. And I cannot
You're a
wait
glass
because
half full guy, Donny. I like that.
I
Glass
try
half
to,
full.
especially in a competition in both WA and Sandful. I love the youngsters that they're producing. You are producing some great football. You
Yeah.
don't have the NAB league where it's just under 18s. These girls
Mm.
have to play senior footy, and I think in some
Yep.
situations it gets them ready for the AFLW just a littlest bit more because they're having to face mature-bodied women, 22, 23-year-old women who have been playing Sandful for 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
I
Spot
think
on.
it actually sharpens them a little bit quicker and is the
Mm.
reason why you're seeing Sandful and Waffle Girls step in and instantly make an impact. Where compared to an 18-year-old Vic who's playing in the NAB League, it takes them a couple of seasons to get used to playing
To
with
adapt. Yeah.
women
Yep.
instead of girls their same age. So,
Yeah. No,
so,
agreed. Couldn't have said it better.
so let's jump to the men, and I'm sad we don't have Darce here because I know he would be chuffed for the men because the men sit atop the table, as you said, unbeaten. I know we had the draw, but technically unbeaten. Is this a little bit of a shocker? Because again, Sturt was kind of our presumed best team in the competition, and the Eagles sit atop on a perch, unbeaten.
Yeah, look, it is and it isn't. I think we again touched on how unlucky the Eagles side were last year with some terrible run of injuries. You know, they
Black
probably
cat
had
be damned.
I would think just off the top of my head, there would have been a good 7 to 10 players that are in their best 22 every week that just didn't play, couldn't get out on the
Yep.
park. Riley Knight springs to mind immediately, had a terrible run with injury. They're not surprising me because they've got a quality program, quality juniors. Their reserves are always competitive, and they're led well by like a good man in Source Jacobs, like you said. Ran well off the field, ran well on the field, and it doesn't surprise me that they're getting the results turning around and going in their favour. We know footy can be a game of luck and it can be a game of inches. And yeah, the Eagles have got their luck going their way this year, which is fortunate for them. But they've also done some really good recruiting. Young Clohesi comes in after some time in the AFL with Geelong. They get guys like Zane Williams back after missing a fair bit of footy through injury. And when you've got a captain by the name of Jimmy Rowe doing what he does, the Hayes boys up in attack. So really on paper, when you look at them, when they're fit and firing, they're as good as any side going around. And it doesn't surprise me to see them atop of the table. The only thing that doesn't surprise me is seeing Darce Evans with a Powerade shower celebrating their current position at the moment, but I'm sure that'll still come.
Absolutely love it.
Made by himself, of course, because he is the Powerade guru.
Yep, he is. He has it on point. He has it on point. So again, we love you, Darce. We will keep you in our thoughts, and hopefully we will see him in a few weeks hopping on the show again. All kind of depending on how things go on that. So that is it for burning questions. Let's jump to it, sir. We have round 4 for the women, round 6 for the men. Let's tip. Let's see what we think is going to happen. I'm curious with a few of these matchups. We'll start off in the women. X Convenience Oval gets to host 3 of the games this weekend. We'll start off with a cracking one as the Woodville West Torrance Eagles face the North Adelaide Roosters. I'm going to tip the Eagles on this one again. I'm liking the way the Roosters have started the season, but coming off a big win, sometimes you have a little bit of a downer, and an Eagles team that I think they are starting to find their form. I'm going to like the Eagles in this one, hoping the Roosters give us a good crack.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the matchup in the coaches box as well. Narelle
Mhm.
up against Kelly Baltrop. So both ladies involved in the state program, of course, and the battle of the birds. But I do think the Eagles on paper are going to be a stronger side. I think Shirley Waters will play her 50th game. Always good to see girls get up in the milestone games. I think this will be an arm wrestle, a close one, but I reckon I just don't feel like North have the defensive prowess to stop someone like a Claudia O'Neill kicking 5 or 6. And we know that when Claude kicks 5 or 6, the Eagles generally win.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. She gets her hands on that football and it goes through. It's difficult to stop that lineup. So let's go on Norwood v West Adelaide on this one. Who are you liking in this one?
Yeah, look, I was really impressed by Norwood. Ben Hunt's a good coach. We know that. We've touched
Yep.
on that, but he's got a good squad. We talked about those talented youngsters coming through just in general in South Australia. Young lady by the name of Lani Cox. She's only 16 years old, Donny, and she was a standout best on ground against the Tigers last week. She wears a purple helmet and purple boots to match, so she stands out for the commentators. But the toughness, the in and under that Norwood provide, they've got Steph Simmons in attack who can kick goals and celebrate like no one else. And a pretty
Mhm.
good midfield and a balanced defence. Georgia Jarks plays well down there as well. Westie's still a bit of unknown for me. Not know much about Shane Peel. Haven't seen a lot of them over the last couple of years. Shout out to one of our SANFL now commentators, Adrienne Davies, who's joined the Bloods in her third SANFL club. But I think AD's side will get touched up by the Redlegs on Saturday morning.
And AD is a former Norwood Redleg, so it'll be interesting to see her face her old
Yep.
club. So
Yep.
I'm with you. I have the legs in this. I have the legs in this one. Like I said, another one. Interesting to see how this one goes. Again, Westie's pesky, but I think Norwood
Yeah.
just a little bit too much class. But I
Yep.
think this should be another cracking one. So fun one here. X Convenience Oval, the last of the 3, sees the Central Districts Bulldogs take on the Glenelg Tigers. This one's got me intrigued because I'm still not 100% sure. Is Glenelg going to be a bottom 4 side, or are they going to be a side fighting for the finals? They've struggled a little bit. Central Districts, again, they face some tough opponents, so I'm not gonna sit there and beat up on them a little bit with the 1-2 record. I think they've faced 2 of the tougher teams in the competition. So
Mm.
doggies, Tigers, who do you like?
Bit of a flip of the coin on this one, Donny. And if I take
Agreed.
my Bulldogs heart out of the equation, I do generally think that the Tigers are a chance to upset Central here. I obviously saw Central against the Eagles, and the Dogs kicked 5 goals, 10 from memory. So had their opportunities. Their coach, Sean Ribbons, also involved in our state program this year, and one of the nicest guys in footy you can meet. He's feeling the pinch of not having a lady by the name of Caitlin Rosenzweig as you go to forward.
Yep.
They're having to play like a hybrid forward through Lauren Briggy. When the Dogs are up and firing, and Tashana Marr and of course Shelby Smith coming back in, Dakota Williams, after an interrupted pre-season. Central are as good as any side going around. But Glenelg have some improving players, and their co-captains, Asher Defoe, Ella Quinn, they lead by example. Isla Weinke's a recruit who I think is playing really good footy at the moment. And do the Tigers have enough scoring power to get over the Dogs? I don't think so. One of their key players, Kiana Lee, of course,
Yeah.
also at her third SANFL club. When she's up and about and playing well, so are Glenelg. But I think they're a bit too reliant on one or two stars. And I do think the Doggies, in a bit of a tight one, might just get the points.
Yeah, Kiana Lee is that X factor that she can change a game on her boot. Does she
Mm,
have enough of a supporting cast to help her here? I just think Central Districts just has a little bit too many weapons to go to. I
yeah.
know Caitlin Rosenwig being out absolutely devastates them because she was
Mm,
such a spearhead for this team. But I think
yep.
they've just got a little bit. I love Tashana Marr. She's absolutely so much fun to watch because she's just a
Yeah.
little firecracker of energy. She gets the footy, she goes. Absolutely love it. Gonna tip the doggies in this one, but I think the Tigers are in this one till late. I think this one comes down to late in the fourth quarter. I think the doggies just have a little bit too much, but who knows? Some Kiana Lee magic could give the Tigers their first win of the season. It'll be fun, and I think a cracking one to end at McGain Stadium is South Adelaide take on Sturt. Can Sturt get a third draw, or can I'm going to tip the Panthers in this one. But Sturt's ability to get draws, I think, makes them a little bit more of a shot in this one than I think some people are giving them credit for.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated more than anything to see how South Adelaide respond after a really disappointing performance last week
Yep.
against the Roosters. I was only 7 or 8 meters to the left of the South coach's box, and Rick Watts and his assistant cohorts were pretty disappointed with that performance to go down to North Adelaide. Full credit again to the Roosters and Sturt. There's still a little bit of unknown in terms of what Ange Foley's bringing. Of course, two draws out of their first three games. So if this wasn't Donny, if this wasn't Mother's Day in Australia and probably an hour and a quarter drive for me on a Sunday morning, I would head down and watch this game if it was on a Saturday afternoon. But I'll be at Elizabeth the day before for the triple header. But I'll be when having a nice coffee with Mum, I'll be eyes glued to the SANFL Now stream to see how this one goes because I think South will probably get the response, particularly on home soil. But I wouldn't be surprised if Sturt get up if they've got someone like a Georgia King who can kick 3 or 4 goals. They're every chance to get the points.
Yep, definitely for sure. I think that could be one of the games of the round for sure to
Mm,
to
agreed.
wrap up this round. It'll be fun to review that one on our next show. Let's jump to round six in the men's. We got some cracking games. Centenary Oval. I'll have to ask you where that one is. As Norwood take on West Adelaide on this one. A, where is this oval? And B, who do you like?
So Centenary Oval, Donny, is in the Eyre Peninsula town of Port Lincoln, famous,
Okay.
of course, for seafood. It is an 8 hour drive from Adelaide, but about an hour and a quarter, no, about 3/4 of an hour rather, flight just across the Gulf. So in the last 4 or 5 years, it's been the zone, the country zone for the Redlegs. It used to be Port Adelaide zone back in the traditional days. I've managed to go over for a couple of these games. I think Adrian Pickles is flying over for this one. Westies are the improved team of the competition, no doubt. Nord are just starting to fire with some players coming back. It's a bit of a small boutique type ground. It's pretty similar to the same size as Nord's ground, so there'll be some familiarity for them.
Mhm.
They would have flown over, I think, probably tomorrow or Friday and have a training session there. Whereas the Bloods had an upset win 2 seasons ago when I was over there. So this is going to be a fascinating game in itself. I'll be probably keeping a very close eye on this one, but I just think Nord might get up as, in inverted commas, the home team.
Yeah, I was gonna say if the ground is similar, that really does help the Red Legs when it comes to it because their ground is so unique. So I can tip
Mm,
the Red
mm,
Legs in this one, but I agree. Westies, don't sniff on this West East side. It'd be fun to see
mm.
this one. Let's go to Alberton Oval as we see Port Adelaide take on your beloved Central Districts. Can your doggies get the first win of the season, or does Port Adelaide keep the doggies in the cellar?
Look, it pains me to say this, but Centrals are on track to win their first wooden spoon since 1977, Donny. So, of course, they've been super competitive and up against their old school arch rivals, albeit in a different format as the AFL reserves for Port Adelaide. But, gone are the days of the old Port v Central at Alberton, probably used to get 5,000 people. There's likely to only be a couple of thousand here. And reading the reports this week with some AFL stars coming back from injury, I think Port Adelaide will get an infusion of a good 3 or 4 AFL quality players making their way back from injury through the SANFL. So I think the Dogs are going to get touched up in this one and continue to be languished at the bottom of the ladder without a win.
Well, I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna pray that the doggies pull one off. I'm gonna tip the doggies in this one, just to be a homer a little bit to my co-host here. So, like I said, this is purely a just pick 'em fun one for me. So I'm gonna just have some fun with this one. So let's head over to McGain Stadium, cracking one, South versus North, a fun one for this one. Again, there's a little bit of part of me that still loves the South Adelaide team because they're not doing it traditionally. So I'm going to tip the Panthers in this one. I really don't care about how the games are going. They've become my second side in the men's. So I'm going to tip the Panthers.
Yeah, and I think their coach in Jared Wright will be coaching his 150th game at league level. And if barring any terrible breakdown and the Panthers part ways with him before season's end, he'll go on to be the longest serving coach at league level for South Adelaide. A bit of emotion for the Panthers this week as well. Only tonight, so only a few hours ago, Sam Skinner, their co-captain, former Port and Brisbane listed player, copped a terrible knock in round one and has had some ongoing issues with concussion. It's forced him to retire. So only tonight to the playing group he announced his retirement. So I think there'll be some emotion behind that for the Panthers. And Josh Franco's North Adelaide side, they're very up and down. They brought in James Battersby. They're promoting a lot of youth. But I think just based on the form, South touched up the Dogs last week. They've been very good to start the year, bar maybe one hiccup in round two. I think the Panthers win this one by 7 or 8 goals.
Cool. It'd be fantastic. Like I said, they kind of become my little bit of a side I keep track of in the men's, just
Mm,
because again they've done it so unconventionally. They went through the youth program, so absolutely that'd be fantastic for them just to see them start the season off with some
mm,
momentum.
mm.
And then the last two games, we got to say, have to be games of the rounds for sure. Both are going to be pull up your popcorn. Let's have some fun. We'll start off top of the table, Woodville West Torrens at home at Mohegan T Oval. Play Glenelg. Fun one. I'm gonna tip the Eagles in this one, not just because of my co-host. I think they've just been playing some really good football, and right now they look like one of the best sides in the competition so far.
Yeah, and a healthy list. We keep touching on it, but their luck has turned around from last year comparatively. They've got a full squad, bar maybe one or two players available to pick from. They're the form team of the competition, obviously, because they haven't yet lost a game. And the Tigers have shown some good signs. They're a little bit up and down. They've obviously still got the likes of Liam McBean and Lockie Hosey in attack. So it'll be fascinating to see how what matchups the Eagles go from a defensive point of view. But I think this will be a real good game. I think it's probably game of the round just over the Sturt Crows one. And I am going to go with the Eagles only because one, it's at home, but importantly, young Harley Montgomery, who's the son of Brett Montgomery, former Port Adelaide and Western Bulldogs player, has really put himself out there and promoting a mental health campaign for men's mental health and made a really valid point, Donny, that 1 in 3 males are battling a mental health issue, but more often than not, don't say anything. And you think straight away, 3 males. Well, between me, you, and Donny, there's three of us there. So, that's really important that we get that message out to the community. And young Harley Montgomery, he's only 18 or 19 years of age, and he's done a wonderful job promoting it. He was on the news tonight, and I think the Eagles will get up for what will be an important game for them.
Absolutely fantastic. Again, it's one of those that I think it's the old bloke syndrome that we're supposed to be tough. We're not supposed to show emotion. And
Yep.
unfortunately, it's just a message that's just wrong. It's
Mm.
never been right. Again, we talked about it a lot last year with Brad Farrell stepping away from mental health.
Yeah.
And again,
Mm.
it needs to be applauded because
Yep.
again, we're in a different time. We're not in the 1950s where blokes were just supposed to deal with it.
Yeah.
You aren't
Yep.
supposed to say anything. You're supposed to be a man. No, that is crap. It always has been crap. So I absolutely love it. That is great for him. So if you get a chance when you see him, thank him for me
I
from
will. I will. And I just realized I've been calling him Harley Montgomery, who's a former Sturt player. It's Harper Montgomery. So apologies. But when I see him next, I will definitely pass on the good message.
definitely shake his hand and thank him for the work that he's doing because that is absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately it's too prevalent in
Mm.
in the male sphere of battling mental illness and not stepping up and saying something's wrong. Something
Yep.
is wrong. Putting your
Agreed.
hand up. I mean, we've had so many great things. I know the Danny Froley and everything that he did so
Mm.
much. I love that you're seeing initiatives like that because they need to be more prevalent for men to realize that you don't have to tough it out. Okay, so
Yeah.
now that
Agreed.
I've had my soapbox on mental health, we'll step back into when we cannot argue as maybe game of the round because this is Sturt's make it or break it this year. Sturt, Adelaide, Thomas Farms Oval. Can they get off the schneid, or do the Crows keep Sturt down?
Look, I think Sturt are going to win this one. Looking at some of the AFL injuries that the Crows
Hmm.
sustained in the showdown, that's going to stretch their SANFL depth. There'll be guys coming in from the SANFL side that were touched up by Port Adelaide. I watched that game; they were disappointing in that SANFL light showdown, as you lovely. I love how you dubbed that one the SANFL light showdown. And Sturt are going to be sick of losing, basically. I think they were pretty disappointing last week. They'll have a couple of more players come back in from injury. And I wouldn't have thought in recent memory, Sturt losing 3 home games on the trot in the first 5 rounds is something we'd be associating the Double Blues, coached by Marty Matner's side, in that equation. So, yeah, I think the depth will test for the Crows, and the Double Blues getting some players back should see them get up by probably about 4 or 5 goals.
Yep, start too good aside. I agree with you. The injury toll from that absolutely insane showdown, I think will affect this Adelaide Crow sample side. So I think start
Yep.
get it done. The Double Blues bounce back. They get their season kind of back on track a little bit. But I will say, if that doesn't come true and Adelaide wins it, who are the panic sirens going off at the Double Blues for sure. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. That is all of our games talked about, all of our games tipped. Again, want to thank you, Phil, again for everything that you do. We were supposed to record last week. Unfortunately, Phil was a little bit ill, so and Darce was not exactly comfortable, and it's been an interesting 24 hours for me having to wake up at 1:30 and notice that a few messages that kind of adjusted how our podcast would go today. A little bit of behind the scenes there, but Phil, just before we get off here, as you said, you're getting ready for this cracking matchup with the Western Australia. With Western Australia, I know this is where I have fun with Paul a little bit because I message him back and forth with a few, trying to find out what he thinks of his WA girls because I know they're super excited for another matchup with the SANFL. So,
Mm.
how are things going? How excited are you? And when should we see the SANFL girls that are going to represent the SANFL against WA?
Yeah, look, we've got our training session on Monday next week. We've released a squad of about 29. There'll be some changes, forced and unforced. We talked about Rosenzweig coming out of the side, the 2 girls we touched on that have been drafted into the AFL, and young Sophie Threadgold broke her ankle the week after the state games. So there'll be at least 4 changes, some exciting young girls that might get some opportunities, some players that will come into the squad. We'll see how they go this weekend. This will be our last round of games to make any changes, and the selection committee will all meet again early next week. We'll train on Wednesday night. We'll select the final team Thursday night, and then we're on a plane Friday to Perth. So, really looking forward to getting over there. The men are playing, of course, as well, and I'm hoping to be able to commentate that one with Jacob Landsmere and the crew at Sport FM over there in WA. So, can't wait to get over to Perth for a packed weekend of state representative footy. And just want to say, Donny, thanks to your great support. Of course, we know we've thrown you around a little bit with some changes, and it does impact you because of the time difference over in the States. So, your passion for podcasting, all things footy, state league wise, is unwavering, and we love and support that. So, thanks to you, and thanks to your support for the state program.
It's always great. Again, I absolutely love it. Again, I have connections in the VFL, the Sample, and the Waffle. I love chatting with you guys. It's so much fun to be able to see these great competitions. And like I said, I think it's the reason why I'm glass half full with the women is because for the
Yeah,
women's competition, I've seen so many of these great players come through that are now wearing AFLW jumpers and are
yeah.
absolutely performing some fantastic ones. I mean, you and I have seen some fantastic ones that have played at the sample that are now playing with Port and like Elaine Grigg now with the Western Bulldogs.
Bulldogs.
How
Yep,
fun was
yep.
she to watch when she was running around in those same red, white, and blue colors at Central Districts? So many of these great ones that I
Mm.
absolutely adore. So this is a passion. I absolutely love it. Do me a favor when you do go to WA, try to connect to the man that is Paul Persick because
We'll try and
that
catch up for
man
sure.
loves his
Mm.
WA. I literally have thought of an idea of pulling you and Paul together and just having fun going back and forth between you two because you both love your competitions so much. Your passion for it is absolutely incredible. And I will say this again, not trying to pump you up, both are incredibly good callers. When you guys are on the call, I have to listen because they're
Thanks.
always picture perfect. So that's it. I'm done raising this man's forehead size for here. So, but I don't mind doing it because I genuinely appreciate what he does for it, calling with the passion that he does. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of Sample Snapshot on the Donnie's Disposal Network. Again, keep track of it. More stuff coming, more AFL round reviews to come, a VFL review to come. Again, with so much footy in the VFL, we're going to do a few more shows this year when it comes to VFL. So Brendan doesn't have to remember 6 weeks of footy, which is not easy when you've got 21, 22 teams in the VFL this year. So more footy coverage still to come again. Keep track of it. We will try to keep you up on the exciting action from each of the state leagues and, of course, the AFL and AFLW. So that'll do it for this episode of Donnie's Disposals, and we'll be back with more footy coverage very, very soon.